Hi everyone, I'm with Anne Cleves and here at the JLF, Jaipur Literature Festival at Diggy Palace. And I was just telling her it feels like it's raining authors we love, authors we've read, authors we've grown reading. And for those who have seen the Vera Stanhope series on television and of course the Shetland series which is there on the Netflix, I think, and the books, the amazing crime thrillers that have become, the good ones have become dime a dozen now because there are not too many people writing in the genre, I feel. What do you think, Anne?
I think, there are lots of crime writers, and it's a
good
great
ones.
It's a great time to be writing crime, I think. I think we're in a new golden age.
You think so?
We called the time between the wars in the UK the golden age of crime fiction because it was Agatha Christie, it was Dorothy Sayers. But now I think we've got some brilliant new young writers coming through, and we can write within the genre but subvert the rules a bit and give traditional crime fiction a very contemporary flavour. So with my new book, The Long Call, it's about a detective who grew up in a very small, rigid, evangelical Christian sect. He lost his faith. He was cast out by his family. And I think he found within the police what he was missing. So he found family again and a sense of duty and honour and perhaps of redemption. So the police service became his new family. And Matthew is gay, so he has a husband. And so that, I think, is perhaps the contemporary twist on the classic detective story.
So what, as a writer, I mean, you have Evan Stanhope, and you have right
Jimmy,
now.
Yes, I've got two established series. The Shetland series features Jimmy Perez, and the Vera Stanhope series, set in Northumberland, where I live, features Vera Stanhope. But then I've stopped writing about Shetland because I've written 8 books set there, and it's a very small community. So I'm writing a new series now, the Matthew Venn series, and I will.
How different is Matthew?
I think Matthew is different because he's haunted by guilt in a way, because although he doesn't believe anymore, he still feels the weight of responsibility from his family, who thought that he was going to be the leader of their community, a great preacher, and he still feels guilt that he wasn't there to look after his father. The book starts when his father is being buried. And so he's standing outside listening to the funeral service, wanting to make a gesture of reconciliation, to go in, but thinking that he would hate to make a scene and perhaps they wouldn't want him there. And while he's waiting, listening to the words from outside, he gets a call that there's been a murder, and so we never know whether he would actually be brave enough to do that. So off he goes to investigate a murder.
So we know a lot more about this detective than we know about a lot of other detectives, or the famous detectives that we know of. I mean, usually their inner workings do not interest us so much, but here is a human interest story about.
I think so, and I think that's what contemporary crime fiction is about. We're more interested in the psychology. We want to dig back, like a kind of psychological archaeology, into the backgrounds of our characters, and not just the detectives, but the criminals and the victims too. I think I'm not interested in writing about monsters. I want to know why my killers have become killers, and look at the context and the community within which they grew up, and the problems that they had as children. And that's not to excuse the crime, but it is an attempt to understand it.
So as a crime writer, I always wonder what makes you take. I mean, look at Agatha. She's written hundreds of books, and then still each book has, and your books, you've written like, I don't know what.
30.
30, wow. So 30 murder mysteries, and each one different from one another, each one not revealing the killer till the end. What makes you take?
I think I'm not really interested in the crime itself. I'm interested in the community, about fractured families, about what holds communities together and what breaks them apart. And really the murder and the investigation provides a structure for me to look at that, because I don't enjoy plotting. I love writing character. I don't enjoy plotting. So really I have that structure of the traditional crime novel gives me that ability to subvert the rules a bit and to explore what I'm interested in.
You've always written this genre, or you had more journeyed into it?
I've always written it. I thought when I started...
What we know of only your crime novels. But
No, I thought when I started that I was going to write a great work of literature. That was I'd read literature at university, I'd read very widely. I thought that was what I should do, of social comment, contemporary literary novel. And I started writing, and I could write character. I'm all right at writing character. I trained as a social worker. I worked for the probation service for a while, so I can do character. That's what my work was exploring why people committed offences. But you can't just have a lot of interesting characters sat in a room. Something has to happen.
Yes,
and I was no good at plotting, and it was only when one of them died, then I was up and running. Then I could write my novel. And so for me, the structure helps me plot, but it doesn't stop me exploring the issues that I enjoy exploring too.
That way, your books, though they have been crime thrillers, have been a little. They have a commentary on the times we live in, and
I think I think contemporary crime fiction does that. That because we're looking at crime, at the criminal justice system, that involves us looking into why people commit crime. What is it in our communities that might breed a killer? And that is sociology. That's a comment on contemporary times. And so I think crime writers, more than perhaps any other genre, explores society as it is today.
Yes. And let me tell you, crime news also is most well read, by the way. So I think, yes, that does evoke, as you said, those questions about why someone has killed someone, and what led to that kind of an attitude towards another person.
Yeah.
Can I know, I wonder, what kind of novels would you read as growing up?
I read crime fiction. That was always my comfort reading. I read, as I said, very widely.
For most of us, yes.
Yes, I went through a phase of reading all the Russian writers and the American classics. But then if I was miserable, or I had the flu, or I'd been dumped by a boyfriend, it was always crime fiction that I went back to. And I think that's because traditional crime fiction has a sense of order restored at the end, of justice done. Some form of resolution and reconciliation. And at a time of chaos, and if you're feeling upset, and I think that's why crime fiction is still popular today. It's a time of shifting values and nationalism and unpleasant people in charge of the world, that we like the sense that eventually order will be restored. And life will come back. The killer will be found. Balance will come back again.
Yeah, amazing. So coming back to your plot of the new series, what is the setting? How did you arrive at the setting, to be more precise?
It's where I grew up. North Devon is where I spent my childhood. I was very, very happy there, and it's where I grew up. I loved it. So it's a seaside town, it's a place where holidaymakers come, but it's also a place where has a sort of secret underbelly that people don't always know about, because it has quite grand hotels and guest houses, but people don't have those sort of holidays anymore. So the guest houses are filled with hostels for homeless people or people who are recovering from addiction. They're cheap, they're places where people can come. Drifters who come in to work in the smart hotels or in the hospitality industry, who in the winter stay around because they don't have anywhere else to go.
So it is a place where you come from, and what memories of childhood have you kind of? Are there any memories of childhood or any conspicuous events of your childhood that you have probably recreated in your book?
I think it's a happy place.
Yeah. Evidently, you've grown up there.
Yeah, so I went...
That's okay, take your time.
So sorry.
So Eve, she has been talking in session after session. I think I can understand what it's done to you.
I'm all right now. My voice is
How has it been to be at JLF?
I've loved it, and I have been talking to lots of journalists, so I'm very sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yes, so North Devon is... I loved going back there. I went there to write the book because my husband died very suddenly, and I wanted to be somewhere where I'd been happy. So I went and stayed with a non-school friend, somebody that I'd known since I was 11. And that's where the idea for the book started. Just going back, talking to people, getting ideas, going and visiting some of the places.
When I asked you the question, I meant with some of the characters from your growing up or the events. Do they feature in the book?
Not so much people I knew when I was growing up, though I use some of the names because I think names root a story in the community, because in North Devon there are certain family names that are there. Same in Shetland and same in Northumberland.
What do you think of your television versions? Are you happy with them? A few episodes I think are taken from yours and then they again have their own storyboard.
I'm very happy with them, and I think that I decided I wouldn't meddle with the adaptation, that I trusted the person who bought the series. She's a great reader, and she understood my character, and she understood the setting.
Which series you're talking about?
Both. It's the same production company, okay. Silverprint make both. And they've optioned the long haul, so we might have a North Devon series as well. And then I think because I love writing the books, that I ought to allow the creatives who understand how television works have that freedom to make good television programmes. And it seemed to me that if I were to meddle and to say, oh, my character wouldn't do that, or you've changed the murderer, how dare you, that would muddle their vision, and they would need a clarity of vision to make good shows. So you're very happy with how it turned out. And because I don't meddle, they're very welcome.
How fast a writer are you? Because now this first book is over. Are you already on your second plot?
I write a book a year.
Or a story. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I write a book a year, and then of course that takes longer to copy edit and to edit and to have the proofs and to work on the jacket. All that takes about a year. So,
no, but you writing as on your own time frame, and you being hounded by the publishers.
I'm not hounded. I know when they need the book, and I love writing. So there's no hardship. It's not like a real job. You know, I'm sat at my kitchen table early in the morning, quite often in my pyjamas, drinking tea and making things up, telling stories. And it's what I've always wanted to do, is tell stories. And so the writing is the fun bit. It's the other, the doing the touring is quite hard sometimes. And
most others say that.
But the writing is fun.
Yeah, that's how you kind of can interact with your readers, I think.
Of course, and how else would I have come here to the beautiful JLF and met such lovely readers and press? And so, no, I'm very, very lucky to have the life that I have.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. It was a lovely interview.
Thank you. I hope that was all right. I'm sorry about coughing all the way through.
No, that's okay. And I think it's not just your novels that are interesting. I think it was a beautiful conversation. I'm sure your readers would love to hear you, and they would be happy. And I'm hoping they will share their comments. They would share what they think of your books and the interview. Right. Thank you so much. See you around.
Thank you.